day 10 of the intermittent fasting challenge. We are about halfway through, which is really exciting, and I'm seeing some really good action on the forum. People are really committing to that next small step and asking some really great questions. And we have a question on the forum this week about what is the difference between time-restricted feeding and intermittent fasting. And that was a really good question for me to ponder, knowing that typically time-restricted feeding is you have a set time each day where you are fasting and then you're feasting. It is a form of intermittent fasting. It's, this terminology and these classifications I would take with a grain of salt. What I particularly want you to hone in on is time-restricted feeding and circadian rhythm. If you do follow some intermittent fasting forums, and particularly the fitness industry that have an interesting kind of nocturnal pattern, if you like, for example, doing some pretty dynamic exercise into the evening after dark, and also eating anywhere up till like 10 p.m. and then maybe going in for the next 16-hour fast through to the next day. I certainly align with time-restricted feeding and circadian rhythm. Optimizing your digestion, so that fasting time does typically happen when the sun goes down, and making the bulk of that fasting time in the evening. And it is just up for you to experiment with that. We know that when you will get, research has proven that you will get deeper rest when you go to bed with an empty stomach. And it is really important that your body can be in rest and digest. If you're lying down on a horizontal plane after dark with food in your stomach, if you also, from an Ayurvedic perspective, they would say that the qualities in your stomach at that time are heavier, there's more mucus, more water, and it actually inhibits the digestive process. Subsequently, you have partially undigested food, and it then translates into toxins in the body, even if you have eaten healthy food. Ideally, you want to be able to eat your last food and close the kitchen at least 3 hours before you go to bed. So I want you to really think about that. What time is bedtime, and how are you going to align your time-restricted feeding with that? Getting into a really good circadian biology. And this is really what will accelerate your results if you want increased energy, if you want to wake up feeling refreshed, alive, vibrant, and ready to greet the day. This particular pattern is going to be extremely important. Yes, do get curious about 16-8, a warrior diet, a 5-2, prolonged fasting, but certainly really stick with these important points of what's happening in nature, when is my digestion optimized, and how do I want to fuel that. And I was talking to someone today reflecting upon how when you do time-restricted feeding and a form of intermittent fasting, quite often you find yourself all of a sudden, some days, only desiring 2 meals a day. And for me, I have reflected on that. Those 2 meals that when I'm eating, I want to make it really worth my while. I want to have the food that I'm eating really nutrient dense. If I'm eating nuts and seeds, I want them soaked and activated so that those beautiful fats and nutrients are readily available just to become my body tissue. On that note, you might be wondering why soaking seeds and nuts are important. And in a very simple description, nuts and seeds, they're designed to withstand nature and be sustainable. So if they were, for example, eaten by a cow, taken through the digestive tract, they're sort of designed to stay potent and intact so that they could come out the other end and still be viable in terms of being seeded and growing into a plant. So it's there's sort of phytonutrients, I think that's the right term, that coat these seeds and nuts that prevent them from being broken down. So when we soak, it sort of takes that away, so that basically your stomach acid, your enzymes don't have as much hard work unlocking the dense nutrients available in those foods. So time restricted fasting, circadian biology, I love it. It's my favorite topic. Ask questions about it, get in the conversation, tell me why you too believe that, there's a time to eat when the sun is highest in the day, a time to rest after dark. For those of us who go camping, we might be wearing our head torches and wondering why we get so tired so much earlier and desire an earlier bed, because we don't have that stimulation of the artificial lights. You can see it all around me. It ramps up our energy. It also somewhat tricks our circadian biology that, it's still time to be active, for the brain to sort of still be hyper aware. So for those people who do have sleep issues or problems winding down, I do highly recommend blue light glasses, dimming the lights, which I'll do as soon as I finish with this video. And that's a little digression, but that still really ties into this idea of time restricted feeding and circadian biology. Everybody in this intermittent fasting challenge is having a bit of a different experience. Some of you are taking longer fasting periods. Some of you are getting curious about time restricted feeding and spontaneously falling into a little bit of a prolonged fast, which is fantastic. And also you're reporting the benefits. So that's great. So you've got the knowledge, you're experimenting and you're implementing. So I just want to really congratulate you for doing that. I want to leave you with 2 challenges today, halfway through the intermittent fasting 21-day challenge. I want to challenge you to have a look at what tastes you're feasting on, and I would like to see you adding in some bitter taste. If you are in the winter season, then you want to make that moderate amounts, because it does increase the cold quality. But bitter taste is really important for scraping out the tissues and keeping our systems clean. It is also important to have a little bit of bitter taste in every meal, because it is important in that cephalic phase of digestion, that first phase, to help start. It helps to stimulate some of the mechanical processing of the stomach and the release of acids to help break down and help you digest. So your challenge today is to think about how you're going to increase the bitter taste in each meal and in your diet in general this week. And 2, think about this as an opportunity, a gateway for change, where you can trade something that you no longer want to do in terms of eating, and trade it for either a better food source or a better habit. So for example, you might trade out a peanut butter sandwich for an egg and mung bean little beautiful bowl of goodness with maybe some sauerkraut and some lightly steamed veggies. Or perhaps you want to trade out ice cream, and you've already eaten a nourishing meal anyway, but then you've still got the sugar craving, the ice cream craving for a treat. In that situation, how can you trade that out and trade something better in? And it could very well be something like meditation, or 7 deep breaths, or a nice bath, or going for a walk, something really soothing and really nourishing. So the second piece of this challenge is to write on the forum, tell us what you're doing and what bad you're trading for something better. And bad isn't a great word. We don't want to feel ashamed or guilty, but you get the picture. All right, see you on the forum.